I think everyone would like to build a healthy, resilient family. Is that your desire? Okay. Now, while a 30-minute lesson will not give us all the details, we're going to try to give some guiding principles during this time that will help us build a family that lasts. Our children need us to get it right. Whether they know it or not, they are counting on us. A few weeks ago, we talked about fighting for our families because they're worth it. How many of you still believe your family's worth it? Now, so much in the culture is designed intentionally to destroy the concept of the nuclear family. Have you ever wondered why they call it the nuclear family? I always think of it as a green glow, and maybe it's the 1950s and the Russian threat and all the nuclear stuff that's starting to happen, but that's not why they call it the nuclear family. They call it the nuclear family because it is the nucleus of our entire structural society. It is the society within society upon which all the rest of society is built. So the strength of our families determines the strength of our churches, our communities, and our entire world. That's why it's so important that we build strong families. And it begins with this: we need a foundation of faith. Now, the foundation is the invisible supporting structure upon which the entire house is built. And there's no more solid a foundation than faith in the Almighty God. You know, Jesus once compared listening to his teachings to the building of a firm foundation. Here's what he said in Matthew chapter 7. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. How many of you have ever felt like your family's just being beat on? Okay? Now, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. I want to point out something before we go any further, and that's this. Notice that storms came to both houses. Those houses that were built on the teachings of Jesus and obedience to that, and that house which was not built on obedience to the teachings of Jesus, storms came to both houses. The difference is not the storm, but the house. What the house was built on, one lasted, one did not. The strength of any structure begins with the solid foundation. If you have poor soil preparation, if you take shortcuts here and there, it will lead to a breakdown and cracks and shifting and maybe even an eventual collapse of the home. You can build the walls and the roof out of the greatest materials known to man, but if the foundation isn't solid, when the storms come, and they do, can I get a witness? They do come, the house will fall. We have to build something resilient, so it's not easy. It takes effort. We need divine help. So we need to know in this foundation of faith that God is our source. See, the foundation of faith for your family is not merely believing that God exists. You know, you ask people if they are a Christian today, they'll go, I believe in God. Well, I believe that Jesus even said that the demons believe and tremble. It's not just a belief in the mere existence of God. It is trusting in the faithfulness of God. Knowing that, yes, there's a God in heaven, but he is also with you, and he will help you in your family. That's what a foundation of faith looks like, a family that's relying on God. Your family has either faced, is facing, or will face some sort of storm. Because God created the family, Satan hates the family. Neither is our culture family friendly. Understand that. And the strength of our family has to come from somewhere else. It cannot come from the cultural norms. They do not support the biblical family. We need a divine source. God is that source. And a family that shares faith is a family that has a future. Think about that. It's what Jesus was teaching us. The foundation of faith was what caused the house to stand. Well, Pastor, you don't know the storm my family's going through right now. Yes, but I know this. If your foundation is faith, it can withstand the storm. We're going to talk about a little bit more what that looks like. Pastor, you don't know how dark it is right now in our situation. You don't know how bleak things look. Listen, all I know is storms come to every house. Your house is no different. Your marriage is no different. Your family is no different. Storms come to everyone. The difference between a crisis and just a challenge is the fact that you are prepared ahead of time. And being prepared ahead of time is building a foundation of faith where you teach your family God is not your last resort. He is your first go-to in every circumstance and situation. Now, God is the source, and Christ must be the center. To merely have faith is not enough. There is but one access to God the Father, and that is through faith in God the Son. Jesus said it in his own words in the book of John, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. We have to make Christ the center of our home. You know what that means? He has to be the center of our individual lives. That's the only way you can have a foundation of faith. You have to place your trust in Jesus Christ and his provision for your salvation. He must be honored in the home in all ways and in all things. Our worship of him, our relationship with him, our service to him has to take first place. As I look at my parents, and we just celebrated with them, well, I didn't. I was at home in the pains of childbirth, and they just celebrated their 64th wedding anniversary. Isn't that something? But if you ask my dad, he will tell you, if it had not been for the Lord, there wouldn't have been these 64 years. If God wasn't first, if Jesus wasn't the center, we wouldn't be celebrating this. He's always privately to me given that glory and that credit to God being the center of their marriage. Let me tell you something. We have to make Jesus the central focus of our home in all that we do. Now, from Christ's teaching, we must develop a clear family vision. Architects create detailed plans accounting for purpose. The family home, what's the investment? What's the environment? What are the future needs going to be? What are the regulations I have to consider in building this home? Parents, you need a shared common vision. Let me say this. Whether you are together or divorced, you need a shared common vision for your children. What kind of home do we want? What principles guide us? How do we handle education? That's a big one today. Think hard at some of the things that are being taught at places in our own nation. It's a big deal how you're going to handle the education of your children. How are we going to handle finances? Well, nobody ever worries about that stuff. More marriages dissolve over financial pressure than over infidelity because it threatens the security of the relationship. And people think it's about money, and it's not about money. It's all about security. But with no plan, no vision, then Satan's got a plot. And he will enact his plot when there is no plan in place. How are we going to handle conflict. With no vision for how you handle things, it's not going to go well. Intentional planning, discussing goals, traditions, and expectations prevent aimless drifting in our families. Yet so many people have yet to articulate a family vision. Do you know every local church should have a vision? Every business should have a vision. And the people within that should know it well. Why not have a vision for the most important entity on earth, our families? Why don't we, instead of bouncing from crisis to crisis, or today we're on this road, tomorrow we're on that road, why not chart the course, get with God, the architect of your family, and see what his plans are, and then articulate that in a vision? Now, we need a clearly articulatable vision for our family, a blueprint, if you will. And first, it must be constructed on biblical principles. Look at what Jesus said. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who's built on his house on the rock. God is the architect and has a plan for how your family is to function, and he wants to share it with mom and dad. He tells us in his word what's acceptable in the life of a believer. And if I'm setting the vision for my family and Jesus is the center, then that which is acceptable for the believer should be what's acceptable in my home. And that which is unacceptable for the believer should be unacceptable in my home. I want to challenge every parent here today to articulate your family vision. Write it down and post it clearly in your home. And make sure to be consistent in biblical practices. Consistency in what we say we believe and how we behave is paramount. Jesus says, not the one that only hears my words, but the one who hears them and keeps them, does them, obeys them. Often, our children struggle between what we tell them we believe and the way that we behave in front of them. Well, I'm hoping that I'm still getting some of the sympathy I needed up front right here. Remember, don't be hard on me. I'm having children. We got to remember they watch more than they listen. How many times you got to tell a kid to clean their room? Yeah, some of you are laughing. But what about when they see you coming in the hall? They see you coming, they're a lot more encouraged to be obedient because they watch more than they listen. And the example we set with our lives dictates the normal for our children. Mom and dad, it is imperative to model the behavior you want to see repeated in your children. The days of do as I say, not as I do, they're pretty much over. They just are. There are so many voices in the life of our children today. Teaching them or telling them to find their own way. Listen, the loudest voice, not in volume, but in influence in your child's life should be your voice. The voice of their parent. And we've got to be careful that the voice we use and the life we live are consistent with one another. Let me give you an example. The scripture tells us as believers to not forsake meeting together as some were already in the habit of doing in the first century church. Now, when I was growing up, don't you hate stories that start that way? You know there's judgment coming at some point, right? But when I was growing up, I went to church on Sunday morning. I went to church on Sunday night. On Wednesday night, I was at church. If revival came, I was at church every night. Sunday night through Saturday night and back at church on Sunday morning. If we had an all-night prayer meeting on a Friday night, we were at church. If we had a singing on Sunday afternoon, we were at church. Of course, they did fix a dinner on the ground, which I think is still a lovely idea. Now, we live in a day where somehow gathering together as the church has been reduced to about an hour and 15 minutes. Think about that. And that's still hard for some people. Committed church attendance and involvement should be part of your family vision. We get them to dance practice. We get them to ball practice. They don't miss the birthday parties. It's even more important we get them to the house of worship. Because if church is optional for you as the parent, don't be surprised when God becomes optional for your child. That's not what we want to raise. That's not the generation we want to foster. We want to make that part of our family vision to be in the house of worship together. In principle and practice, there has to be consistency. The third thing you need to build a strong family, since I know y'all love that last part so much, is a culture of love. The materials out of which your home is built speak to the stability and structure it will have. And the culture of a family is what causes the vision to thrive. This is what we do as our family, and this is the atmosphere in which we do it. That's the culture of your family. And it needs to be a culture of love. The strength of our families will largely depend on the quality of our relationships. And it begins with the quality of the foundational relationship of the family, that is marriage. And let me just say this. Weak, quarrelsome, tumultuous marriages will not serve you well in building a strong family. Can I just say it in Tennessee terms? When you're always throwing down with one another, when you're always fussing and fighting, that won't build a strong family. It not only will destroy your family, it'll destroy your children's family when they get their own family. Because you are setting the expectation of normal. You're teaching your daughters what to expect out of a husband. You're teaching your sons how to treat a woman. Mom and dad, you have to submit to the mission of your marriage. Here's what Paul said to the believers in Ephesians 5:25 and 21. And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. What's he saying? That he follows up that call for submission with specific instructions to husbands and wives. So we are, in our marriage, my wife and I, submitting to one another out of reverence or submission to Christ, out of honoring the Lord. So my marriage can either honor God or dishonor God. And if I want to honor God, then I'm called to submit to the mission of marriage. The next thing he speaks to are these two things. He speaks to the sacrificial spiritual leadership of a man. Now, I know it's not Father's Day, but I guess I'm kind of getting ready for it in my head and heart. One of the most untapped resources in the country today, in the church today, and in the home today, and in the world today is the spiritual leadership of men. And the reason is Satan wants to distract us with so many things and drag us into so many things that we will feel unworthy to lead our families. That's what it's all about. Guys, he's trying to kill your influence in your home by tying you up with things that are unlike God. And then when it comes your time to spiritually lead, all you've got is the guilt of the disobedience. Understand that you don't have to fall for that. You're more important than that. Your sacrificial spiritual leadership is needed in your home. Well, that means I'm first, Pastor. Yes, it does. You're the first to sacrifice. You're the first to put the needs of everybody else before yourself. I say that because I saw that modeled in my home. When my sisters and I would all get new Easter outfits, and my mother would get a new dress, but my father wore the same thing he wore the year before because there was only enough money to buy so much. I saw him put the needs of his family first. I am calling on all men in this congregation to rise up to the intimidating job of leading your family spiritually. I can speak to you guys, and it doesn't bother me one bit, but leading my wife in our family was the most intimidating challenge of my life. You know why? I feel like she's so much closer to God than I am. She's built for intimacy with God. She acclimates to it. She gets up early to experience it. How am I ever going to lead someone that's that far ahead of me? But what I learned is intimidation did not relieve me of my responsibility to lead my home. And guys, your wives are waiting on you. Most women who serve God with their whole heart are looking for the leadership of a godly man in their home. I don't know why I'm spending so much time here, but guys, I challenge you. Don't let Satan drag you into things that take your authority away. You are the spiritual leader of your home. That means you've got to keep your relationship with God in good standing. You got to keep it fresh. You've got to be with the Lord each day. And then he talked about the loving submission of a wife. But it's all in the context of two people that are living in reverence for Christ. See, when your man starts in his spiritual leadership journey, he's going to make mistakes. And God did not put you there to point them out. Because if all you ever do is point out their mistakes, they will quit trying. God put you there as an encourager. And heavy on the heart of a man is the praise that falls from the lips of his wife. Trust me, your affirmation in the process will strengthen your man's desire to lead spiritually. If you're always second guessing everything he says or does, if you're always making his ideas look dumb or small, he will quit trying. And your house will be out of order, and your children won't know that a man's supposed to lead and a woman is supposed to walk next to that man as his partner in life, and together they lead their families. It's submitting to the mission of marriage. The quality of your marriage will have everything to do with determining the success of your home. Let me move on while I've still got time. We talked about the quality of relationships, but then there are relational dynamics within the home itself that includes the children, and we have to raise the awareness of relational responsibilities. We do our children an injustice, hear me now, I'm going to say it as kindly as I can, when we let the world revolve around them and in turn fail to teach them that everyone in the family has responsibility. We need to teach our children we are responsible to and for our family members. One of the things I see that happens today is we allow our children's schedules to become so crowded that family time is put on the back burner. Family dinner, family night, family time in general. Because they don't play on one team, they play on 3 teams. I am making enemies. I can feel it as I'm talking. Trying to help you build a strong family. Loving relationships take time and focus. And we will serve our children well to limit their personal schedules to make time for family interaction. Team sports are great for their development. They need to learn how to win working with a team and learn how to lose working with a team. But their most important team is their family, and their most important position is son or daughter, brother or sister. Some of you are going to have to make some changes after this word, because God's speaking to you and showing you in some way, hey, I'm not building a strong family here. I'm letting too many other things take my kids' attention. I need to make sure we have family time together. I challenge every family, prioritize a family night each week in your home. Get it started with just one. You might like it and do more. Who knows? And then there's one thing left, and that is a commitment to family reliability. Children need the security that a strong family offers. They must know they can always count on their family's love, just like we can always count on God's love. As a matter of fact, the most powerful love known to man is the love of God. And a Christ-centered, God-sourced family should love each other with that kind of love. There should be an assurance that, yes, we do have expectations in this family. Yes, there are things acceptable and unacceptable under the roof of our home. But one thing will never change. That is the reliable love of your family. See, a culture of love provides the security and confidence your child needs to grow into a productive, healthy adult. And do you know that you can still provide that even when there's been a divorce between the parents? Let me say this. Divorce has never been the intent of most couples who got married. I've never done a wedding where the groom said, "Preacher, I got to tell you, I can't wait to divorce this woman." Never. Divorce came about because of carelessness and offense and laziness in actively loving one another. There's many things that contribute to it, but should the children have to pay for that? See, it's true that God hates divorce, but He doesn't hate divorced people. Are you hearing me? The church needs to delineate that, because too many people have gone through divorce and walked away from the church because they felt unacceptable to some churches. Listen, things like divorce is exactly why Jesus died on the cross. When life doesn't go right, the cross can make things right. And I want you to know, if you're going through it, if you've been through it, there's forgiveness and grace at the foot of the cross, but you'll have to go to the foot of the cross either way. See, that's a step you don't realize, that that's still included in whatever decision you make. But parents, let me say this to you. Your children are not your counselors. Please do not let your inability to get along with your spouse become a stumbling block in their relationship with your children. Stop using them as pawns. They have two homes, but they have one heart. Are you hearing me? And even if you can't stand one another right now, grow up and be a parent to your children. That doesn't change. Here I was, thought I'd be nice the first day back. I have been more gentle. Have you noticed that? I've not moved around quite as much. I'm afraid to, actually. So let me give you some steps. Answer 3 questions. What can I do to start building a foundation of faith in my family? Could it be that one of our cardinal rules, a part of our family constitution is we go to church together on whatever day of the week your church has church, but we're in church together? Could it be as simple as we're going to start praying over every meal, and Dad, you're going to lead the prayer? That's an easy first step. I don't want you to try to chew it all at one time. You'll choke. Take a bite at a time and start moving your family toward the foundation of faith. What one step can you take? Secondly, how can I articulate a family vision? Well, first of all, spend time in the Word and in prayer. Find someone who's doing it well and ask them. Set an appointment with your campus pastor, your small group leader. Ask them, hey, what does God expect for my home? Get help in that. We need to all learn that together. But what one step can you take in articulating that vision? Start with a conversation between mom and dad. And once you've talked a little bit, talk with the kids. Hey, what do you think Jesus would have for our family? Make them part. And then you've got a constitution that holds everybody to the same standard. And you don't always have to come back and be the bad guy when somebody does something wrong. I love strong policies written out. I like that. You know why? I don't have to be the bad guy. If somebody I work with violates one of those policies, I can call them in and say, hey, this is what we share with you. This is what we talk about. This is how we do things here, and what you did is not that. Now I need you to start doing this. Wouldn't it be great if you could handle your kids that way? It's written down right here. Take them to a place of understanding. And third, how can I build a culture of love? Well, in my opinion, love is the decision to assign value. So start treating each other like they have value. Start with the smallest acts of kindness, because when there is no vision for this stuff, selfishness dictates relational interaction. A kid's not going to interact with somebody based on what's best for the other person until they learn that. So teach your children that you may get mad at them at times, but they're still your brother or they're still your sister, and you stick together no matter what. Start treating one another kindly. Do you know that small acts of kindness can turn the worst marriage around? Just little small acts of kindness. Being thoughtful. Stop using words like stupid and dumb and ignorant, and start using better words. God doesn't want your family to fail. He wants your family to last, because the storms, they come, but the house built on Jesus is the house that stands and stays no matter what. Somebody give God some praise. Stand with me if you would. Pastor Blake, I want you to call the prayers together. I just pray that God ministers to you and your family during this time in Jesus' name.